Oh, hi, Mark. Nice to see you again. Welcome to the Sound for More channel. Thank you for joining.
Thank you, Leo. Appreciate it.
Okay, so it's really nice to have you on the channel. So I'm sure a lot of subscribers and viewers of the channel will appreciate to know a little bit more about Audulus. So if it is okay, I'm going to ask you some question. So what's Audulus and where does the idea come from?
So Audulus is a modular synthesizer visual programming environment for Mac and iPad. And it was created by Taylor Holiday. He's a really great programmer who came from a visual background. He actually worked for Pixar. And what he was doing there was creating the software that they used to create the movies that they were working with. So like every movie they would come out, they would kind of build a new piece of software to do something new. And he loved working with the visual aspect of programming, but he didn't enjoy so much the pace of work at Pixar. So he decided, I'm going to strike out on my own, like so many tech people do, and so many people who know how to program on his level can do. They have this, idea, and they go out and execute it. And Taylor did that, sometime maybe it's even 8 or 9 years ago by now. And what he ended up creating was something like because he had a non-compete clause in Pixar, he couldn't do anything kind of after he left. He couldn't do anything that was kind of graphics related. So what he did instead was make a modular synthesizer, and it was sort of inspired by the Nord modular, if you're familiar with that. He had one and kind of liked it, but he didn't like the interface so much. And so what he wanted to do is create something that had a better interface. And he took the main idea behind Audulus has always been this infinite canvas that you can kind of just open it up and move around as much as you want. And that's been at the core of like what Audulus has been the whole time. And then inside of it, you have these nodes, these little kind of packets of code that are wrapped up into little containers, and you wire them together and create bigger and better things. And over time, it's developed so many people helping to build it as far as the user community, giving great feedback and really helping us build it to what it is today, to like where I think it is now, like with Audulus 4 is really sort of, of course, it's always the best it's ever been today because it's always giving up to where it is. But really, the jump between 3 and 4 is like a huge level of improvement. Yeah.
And it's great to say it how it works, because it takes full advantage, for example, of being an audio unit instance, UV3, for example, on the iPad. So you can use it as an audio source. So you can use it as a MIDI processor, or you can use it also as an audio processor. So it gives you a lot of possibility in terms of not only of creating what you need, but then connect it within your suite of products, doesn't it?
I like to think of it, for me personally, it's sort of like digital DIY electronics. At least that is, there's sort of 2 levels to work on. You can work on the level that I'm working on, where I'm sort of, most of the time I spend using Audulus, I'm making things, I'm making instruments, making modules. The other level you can come in on is that you just use the modules that you're given and wire those together and make those, make patches, make songs with them and use them as instruments or effects and things. But for me, what I enjoy most about it is I have an idea in my head, I want to make a module, and I can sit down and if it's not too complicated, I can basically create it in anywhere between 5 minutes or like 15 minutes sometimes. Sometimes like this latest project I've been working on, this matrix sequencer, that one's taken maybe like 40 hours so far. But even then, it's really, what's great about it is because you're immediately getting the feedback. It's not like you have to write the code, compile it, run it, test it, all this thing. It either works or it doesn't. It's sort of just a one-to-one, really, really fast kind of feedback loop that you have with what you're creating.
And the other thing is also great is that you can go really granular in terms of what you can create. It's almost, as you said, using a circuit board. And also as things like, for example, the use of OpenGL on shaders, or for example, the Canvas node as well, where you actually can use standardized languages actually to customize your UI, which is really good to create, for example, your component.
Yeah, exactly. And I never want to present myself as like I know more than I do, because frankly, you mentioned GLSL. I don't know shaders at all. I just don't know it. I'm a complete newbie to Lua, let alone GLSL. And there's a great book called like the Book of Shaders that I know I've got bookmarked, and I'm going to get into that. It's one of those, like, you're the piano teacher. You just need to stay a couple lessons ahead of the students, and then you can teach them what you know. That's sort of how I feel sometimes with coding. And but with Lua, it's like I know enough to like create functions, to do iterations and stuff. But I'm sure there are more, experienced programmers who will go out and look at what I'm doing. I'll be like, oh, this is all wrong. You should do it this way, that way. Point is like that, there's so much packed into Audulus that even I, as one of the more experienced users of Audulus, I don't know how to use. And that just shows you how much more potential there is for in particular. And there, I don't know how to build reverbs. My colleague, Jeremy is like really good at building reverbs. And so he packed a bunch of reverbs into Audulus 4. We've got new granular synthesis capabilities and other things. It's all, for me, another thing I find exciting about it is just, I can sit down there, and every time I sit in front of Audulus, I have something to do. I have something to learn. I have some skill to increase every time I sit down with it.
Yeah.
And again, I sometimes I feel like I'm talking about, what I love about Audulus, and then I forget, like, okay, someone might be listening to that and saying, I have to sit down and learn something every time. No, that's the level that I'm working at. It's sort of like I'm always learning and trying new things, and learning new languages and ways of doing things. But on the other level, if you know how to do modular synthesis, you could just open up Audulus and work at that level, and you can do what you've always been doing as well.
So Mark, what's coming next for Audulus? I'm sure users and subscribers of the Sound for More channel would like to know a little bit more, if you can share, of course.
Yeah. So this comes with the caveat of, I will not put a timestamp on Taylor's work and promise anything by a certain date, but it's been talked about enough in our Discord that I'm pretty sure it's going to be a certain thing, and that is that. So we have the Canvas node, and that's written in Lua, and Lua is a very fast scripting language, and we're going to have the Canvas node draws visualizations for things. So you can draw something that, say, like you have a modulation signal coming in, and then it reflects in a little meter that you create that can show that the modulation is moving up and down something. The problem with you don't want to process signals through the Canvas node, because it's only updated like every 60 times a second or something. It doesn't work fast enough for processing at audio rate, because you don't need to process graphics at audio rate. It would just be a waste of CPU time. And so that's purposely kept like limited so that it's slowly generating something. Well, we're going to use the same language, Lua, to create a DSP node. And then this will be a separate node that you can run signals through it, and then create a whole app, not a whole app, sorry, a whole module, a whole synthesizer, just in code in Audulus. And right. I think that opens the door for a lot of people who, they're familiar with code. It's a whole other area, a whole other group of people who could use Audulus, who are familiar enough with programming that they could come and do something in Audulus now. Whereas, like, if they had to learn everything about the nodes, that might be intimidating, but they can just sit down and program a module, no problem, for sure.
Okay, Mark, thank you very much for being here with the Sound for More channel. And I'm sure the subscriber and viewer will be very delighted to see the interview, and let's keep connected. Speak to you soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Leo. Bye.